And that's another thing that a lot of law firms don't realize. They think, oh, well, we just have to explain our services and then what to do next, and then they're going to sign the contract. But if they're not emotionally connected to the person that answered the phone or that answered the chat, they're more likely to flounder and go somewhere else.
Well, hello and welcome to another guest interview here on the Profit with Love podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today we're in for a treat. Why? Because we're going to be talking about marketing, maybe, sales, maybe, let's see. But our guest, Margarita Eberline, is the author of Connect Convert. Sorry, I already messed that one up. Connect Convert, a guide to transforming law firm marketing and sales strategies. She's also the founder of Marketing Boss, a fractional CMO specializing in tailored marketing leadership for law firms. Known for her client-focused approach, Margarita emphasizes integrity, adaptability, and actionable results. Her bilingual expertise and dedication make her a trusted partner for law firms seeking growth and success. So before I bring Margarita on the show, let me just talk for a minute about my own experiences. We do fractional CFO work with our larger clients. We help our smaller clients, our solos looking to grow beyond themselves. They're going from solo to $1 million to $2 million in revenue in 12 months. Part of that journey is investing in marketing in a way that they probably have never done before. Most of our solos who come into our elite coaching program, where we take them on that journey, perhaps aren't spending money on marketing at all. And the ones that are just doing the basics, a website, low-hanging fruit, maybe some LSAs, and that's it. Our fractional CFO clients are $2-3 million revenue plus clients that you have a budget where you're spending money on marketing. But what I found is that the marketing is highly inefficient in that you are not measuring it, you're not looking at it, you're not making tweaks or adjustments to cut things that aren't working and to grow things that are. What ends up happening is that we come in, one of the first things that we do is hone in on the marketing, because that's where money is being spent that's being wasted. Mm-hmm. At the same time, your marketing goes hand in hand with your sales. So we spend X amount of dollars on marketing and we're measuring campaigns. So at the campaign level, the marketing people, they like to tout how much they paid per lead, right? Like, oh my goodness, we got you from $180 per lead to $60 per lead. But that means nothing if the $60 per lead is a lower quality person and therefore converting at a lower rate. So we look at, on the CFO side, we look at your return on ad spend. How much are you getting for that ad spend? If you're at 3x or above, there's room to improve that and get us to 5x. But the gold standard is you got to be at 5x or greater. Why? Because we believe your budget for your marketing should be closer to 10 to 15% of your revenue. So if you're getting some leads for free from your organic, your SEO, your social, your friends and family, your past clients, then we can afford to spend maybe 20% for the stuff that we're buying, where those leads combined with the free ones could bring us down to that 15 to 10% level. 20% is 5x, right? So that's our gold standard. That's where we need to be. What's interesting is that it's not all on the shoulders of marketing, because once the lead comes in, there's a lot that happens to either get that person to become a client or to lose that person, and that's on the sales side. And that's why I'm excited about this conversation, because Margarita, although she's a CMO and her business acts as a CMO in your business, when we were talking in the green room, she says, we should be talking about sales, because we can win at marketing all day long, but if you're doing a crap job at sales, that marketing is going to be irrelevant. So that's where we're going to jump in and start talking with her. But before we do that, Margarita, welcome to the show. If you can just start by just give us a little bit of backstory. So whoever hasn't heard of you, doesn't know who you are, how did you get into this, into CMO, the legal field? Just quick, story of just how you entered into this realm, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of this conversation.
Absolutely. So happy to share my story. I will try to condense it as much as possible because it's like a series of like serendipitous things. But in a nutshell, I started off as a pre-law student when I was doing my undergrad at Berkeley, and I thought I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer. And that was what I was doing. And I had this amazing opportunity during that time to intern at a TV station, NBC, their NBC affiliate in Burbank in Los Angeles area. And in the summer, I would go and do my internship, and then I'd go to school. And I had this wonderful opportunity through that internship to meet a lot of people. And I also was going to Cal with a private scholarship, and then that opened up a whole other network. And so I was going to school on this career path, and I was thinking to myself, like, let me leverage this network to really understand what am I getting into when I become an entertainment lawyer, because I was determined to do that. And I had this epiphany where I knew even back then that I had to pursue a career that matched who I was. And I started to actually meet people that were in that field. And I felt like, okay, this kind of feels like who I am, but like there's something more. And then I really geeked out on the marketing side. I decided to pursue a job opportunity with Christy Habeger. She's the founder of Latina Magazine, and she was working on a film at the time. So like as soon as I got out of Cal, I went and did that for a little while to explore, right? I was still like kind of thinking I wanted to do, I was even studying for the LSAT. And I just had this aha moment where I just fell in love with the idea of using data analytics to make creative decisions. I was like, oh, this is magical, because when we think about movies and art and, you know, creativity and entertainment, we think about creating things and then hoping that people buy it, right? And back then I thought it was all opinion based, but there's actually data behind everything, even behind what sort of colors make people hungry. And I started to really play in that space and ended up going to Nielsen afterwards, which is where I spent the bulk of my career. Once I was with Nielsen, I was working with data, 24/7 data, analyzing qualitative, quantitative, really getting into the psychology of data, getting into neuroscience and all of those really geeky things, and having a blast, and decided to have children. And for lifestyle reasons, that was no longer a fit for me career-wise. I'm actually the mother of 5. And if anybody can find a way to do things efficiently, it's me because of that. So anyway, I wound up going to a more local job opportunity with a TV station named Telemundo. And during that time, the Obama administration was encouraging us to, or the TV station was encouraging us because of the Obama administration, to pursue business or open up new business with immigration attorneys. They were like, right now is the time for immigration attorneys to advertise on TV because of all these things that the administration is doing in the immigration space. So then I reconnected with my first love, which was attorneys, right? And so I started working with attorneys, getting them on TV and reconnecting with that part of myself. And then had another aha moment where I thought, you know, these attorneys are investing $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, whatever on TV, but their website doesn't really match what's on the TV commercial. And they don't have a Google directory listing, and they don't have and so I started having these conversations with them. And long story short, that led me to create a whole full service agency to serve these attorneys, because I thought these attorneys are really great people. They deserve better. And then during the pandemic, I pivoted into what I'm doing now, which is Marketing Boss, because I had another realization that as a agency owner, I could never fully be unbiased with the strategies that I recommended to my attorney clients, because I always had to sell a service. And now I'm what I call tactic agnostic. So as a CMO, I get to say to the attorney, here's what's really going to work. And here's what it makes sense for you to do next. And here's how we can prioritize. And I'm never shooting myself in the foot by recommending something that I don't do, because I don't implement marketing services like a traditional agency. We stay in the consulting lane, we stay in the guiding lane. And then with a sales piece, because my agency, my firm has a 3-pronged approach. We look at the marketing, yes, but we also make sure that it's complemented by a sales experience, meaning automation as well as customer service. And I find that that is where the biggest, like a lot of attorneys think they have a marketing problem, but the biggest blind spot where you can actually increase your ROI fairly quickly if you get it right is in the sales space. Typical attorney will say, oh, my sales and intake process is great. And I'll even hear the receptionist, she sounds nice, right? But she's not really following a science to qualifying, to creating building trust, to connecting and really converting that lead, she's just nice or he's just nice. And so that's an example of the typical like experience that I have as a CMO, where I'll come in and yeah, I'll make the marketing better. We'll make the marketing better. We'll create action items, manage the vendors, and do what we need to do there. But 9 times out of 10, I find that there's so much room for improvement in the sales and intake process, where if we could just fix that, even with the leads that we have, right? Even if they're poor quality, we can still flip a really good profit from whatever effort. So
yeah, I think what's interesting is that so many law firm owners, when you ask them, oh yeah, like what's your sales conversion rate? And they'll tell you like 90% or 100%, like something like that, right? And you're like, well, nobody in the world converts at 100%. So let's really analyze how you're calculating that. And then when
percent of what?
right, exactly.
Right.
And then when it comes down to it, you're like, oh, you're converting 100% of the people who you're having a meeting with. What about all the people that didn't show up or didn't book a call or aren't there? And
Yes.
usually that's if you have a paid consult of some kind, you've already converted them to be a paying client. Now you're having a conversation with them to basically tell them this is how your next check is going to look. But essentially, it's just the next step in a natural process. If you're doing free consults, chances are you're not even thinking you're at 100%, but still you might think that you're at a really high level, because often we look at sales conversions at the last conversation. And the reality is that there's so many points along the way, from when the lead first clicks on our page on our website or first calls our phone number until they become a client, that if you look at how many times the phone rang with a lead and how many times somebody landed on your website, and then look at how many sales you made, you'll find that your conversion rate is significantly lower. And there's a lot of metrics in between that we can look at to kind of really hone in on where are the biggest gaps. But most firm owners operate in a place of delusion when it comes to how good the sales process is. And I think that's a really good point. And it's the huge lever on the other side of the needle, right? So marketing can only do so much to bring in qualified leads at a cost that you can make money on, but then you have to go and convert them. So, right. Margarita, in your experience, do you have like a conversion number? Is there a percentage that is like, okay, if you're converting sales at this percentage, then you're doing okay. If you're converting below that, there's a lot of room for improvement. Like, do you even look at that, or it's just like your assumption is like, no matter who it is or what it is, there's room for improvement. Let's look at it.
Yeah, I don't even have that conversation with law firm owners, because whatever data I get, as you just described, is probably going to be inaccurate. So what I do on the CMO side is I look to see, number one, are we actually capturing every single lead that we should be capturing? One example, I did an audit with a client and they had 30 leads that they never saw, they never responded to, like just sitting in a chat. Like, I look at that first, right? So that's point number one is, are we actually capturing every single lead and responding to it? Then the other thing that I look for is, out of the ones that we're capturing and responding to, how many are qualified? And that's where it gets fuzzy. Again, I don't bother to have this conversation because the data is probably not going to be accurate. Like, I've got to get that data myself, or my team has to get it. I wish I could do everything, but I can't. I have a wonderful team. So we've got to figure that out first, right? So maybe you do have leads that are qualified, but then maybe your intake team or your sales team, not because they're deceitful, but because we don't have a clear SOP for what we consider to be a qualified lead. I'll give you an example. If I call a PI firm in a major market and I ask for Morgan & Morgan and somebody says wrong number, I could have still been a qualified lead. I could have been a new customer looking for personal injury services, that if you would have just responded to me with, are you calling about an existing case or a brand new case? And I would have said, oh, it's a new case. I just got rear-ended. Tell me what happened. Connect, flip, that's a qualified lead. But in my data, I mistakenly dismissed it as a non-qualified lead. So that's the other piece that we look at, right? SOPs on lead qualification. And then the other piece is, okay, out of the ones that are qualified, once I have that number, I do have a number in my brain. Realistically speaking, you should be able to convert 95% of the actual true qualified leads that have a valid case that your firm can take. But I never have that conversation with a law firm owner because whatever numbers they have in their head are probably not accurate because of the 2 points that I gave you, like from right before. So once I have those conditions met and I have that data, then I'm aiming for through our sales program to get them to that 95 conversion rate of just the qualified. There's going to be folks that they don't have a good case, right? That are disqualified. So I don't count those. But I think 95% of qualified is a pretty good number to go after.
Yeah, I think 95% is an insane number. And anybody who's hitting that is rock stars. I think firm owners might have no problem hitting that. When you start building out a sales team, and you build out non-attorney sales personnel, even if they're taking qualified leads and converting at a 25 or 30% number, you can still make financial sense of pretty much any marketing outlet that's out there, right? And one of the things that we do with our fractional CFO clients is we help them implement a new performance compensation package for their salespeople so that they're highly motivated to improve their performance. And we look at different things. It's not just dollars in the door. It's, and every client's different. So for one client, we created a dashboard where the clients are being measured by the average quotes that they're delivering per day. Like when somebody is quoted a fee, that's considered a quote, and they need to hit like 6.5 quotes per day is the first level. If they don't hit that, they don't get a bonus. And that's on average, right? And then the peak performance is 9 quotes per day. So it's not just dollars in the door. It's also the efforts that are going to drive the dollars. We want to make sure that they're providing enough quotes, that they're having enough conversations. Another metric we'll measure them on is conversion rate.
Yeah.
And, for that client with those quotes per day, we're also looking at conversion rate, and their conversion rate is, right now it's running at about 45%. So we built out the bonus structure where it's pushing them beyond that. So 45 is the first level, and then we're going to 55 and 65. There's another client who's in a similar space, not exactly, and their people are converting at 25%. And
yeah, I've got a client that his conversions are at 25% with like just the blanket number. I'm not even talking about just out of the qualified, just in general. Like leads come in, 25% are converted, and it's very profitable because they're high value cases. Right. So that's also another factor with the profitability piece.
Well, this client that's 25%, 50% of their leads are unqualified. So if you count it based off of total leads, it's even less. It's like 12.5%.
Yeah.
But they're still profitable. So what I did is I demonstrated to them how powerful it would be to increase the percentage of conversion rate, right? And what's crazy is that this is a client that's doing now, let's say 7.5 million annually, right? I showed them that if we increase their conversion rate by 1 percentage point per quarter for this year, so we go to 26 in the first quarter, 27 in the second quarter, 28 in the third quarter, 29 in the fourth quarter, that alone would translate into an additional 1.5 million in revenue.
Wow.
And that's mind-boggling because it is a tiny, tiny little improvement. It's not big.
Yeah.
If you look at each particular salesperson, they're only having 20 times 7 or 8, like 150 conversations in a month per salesperson, right? So what's 1%? That's another 1.5 closes per month.
Wow.
Right?
We can help them get there.
Per salesperson, right?
Yes.
That is doable, right?
It's very.
We could totally do that simply by focusing on it, right? So there's a ton of power in moving the needle on these metrics, right? So you mentioned SOPs around the intake process, SOPs around how the phone is answered and how you qualify somebody on whether they're even a qualified lead to work with. What are some other things that you have found helpful for your clients to focus on to get them to move the needle in the sales process?
So I'm a data person, so you'll appreciate this because I know you like data too. I actually developed a methodology called Connect Convert. So Connect Convert was named after the methodology that I created to increase the odds that you're going to sign up a qualified case. And the Connect Convert methodology measures KPIs in a conversation. So for example, my grading on a scale of 1 to 10, did I follow the best practices as defined in my methodology? Usually if it's a bilingual law firm, you want to have a bilingual greeting. It's got to be warm and friendly and like build trust, have the right energy, right? And then another KPI that is often missed, and that if you pay more attention to it, you'll have less ghosting. And this is reassurance. So a lot of people skip this step. Typical scenario is, hello, Acme Law. Yes, absolutely. We can help you. Okay, great. Send over the agreement. And then they don't sign it, right? Because we skip the assurance step. The assurance KPI is all about, even if I already told you yes, you have to assure the caller that they called the right place, that you as a person. Like if I'm on the phone with someone, I as a person have to transmit the feeling of I am committed to having this work out well for you. Like I've got to have that trust. Those types of things, that effort leads to a lot less ghosting. The reason why ghosting happens, and it's a big issue at law firms, is because, oh, well, they said yes. Like then they just didn't sign the agreement, and I have no idea why. It's
Right.
because psychologically speaking, people that call a law firm are under a lot of stress. They're not thinking clearly, even if they sound clear, right? They may sound, but they're not. They're confused, they're emotional, and everything's muddy. And so what happens is they think and they fully intend when they get off the phone that they're going to follow through, but then fear comes in, emotions comes in, their, aunt, cousin, spouse, whatever, starts putting stuff in their head, and then they're like paralyzed for making a decision, and then they ghost you. And then they'll Google again and call someone else. So with Connect Convert, we aim to help people create the meaningful connections, and it's an emotional connection is what's most important, because that's more reliable than an intellectual. And that's another thing that a lot of law firms don't realize. They think, oh, well, we just have to explain our services and then what to do next, and then they're going to sign the contract. But if they're not emotionally connected to the person that answered the phone or that answered the chat, they're more likely to flounder and go somewhere else. The other piece is the take them off the market factor. Like we don't want, like some people are just not going to be ready to make a decision, and that's okay. We can still follow up. And this is where I get to my 95%. I want to take them off the market. I want to follow up with them with text messaging, automation, videos, a whole customer experience. This is where the marketing comes into the sales and they work together. If I create that sort of experience, I may not get the sign up right then and there, but I'll get it later because I took them off the market. They may be the type of person that just needs more time to make such a big decision, but they're not calling anywhere else because they connected with my sales and intake person emotionally. So now I took them off the market. And then the other piece is we definitely want them to articulate things in a way that's personalized. So a very common and, or a very simple thing that you can apply, and please prove me wrong. Tell your sales and intake people to use people's names in the conversation. See what difference that makes. Like that little detail creates that warmth, that trust. And again, it has to be authentic, right? We don't want to be condescending, right? We don't want to use a condescending tone like, well, Margarita, we want to be personal and warm. But try that and it makes a huge difference. Just personalizing, again, builds that trust, creates that sense of, oh, this person feels familiar. And there's a lot of psychology here that I'm trying to unpack. We usually do these trainings that are like a full day, but those are really the highlights. So we have a proprietary scorecard. It's called the Connect Convert Scorecard that we use to audit calls before we do any actual like personalized training, where we want to see where your team is and we want to have data through the scorecard that's, relying on this methodology that we've already tested. And I just gave you some of the highlights. There's other KPIs. And then we can have that training because by then we'll know, oh, empathy is the big issue. Oh, they're already personalizing, but they're skipping that assurance step, or they're skipping that commitment step. Commitment is usually a symbolic action, like, your appointment is at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'll give you a second to write that down. Like awkward silence. People don't like that awkward silence, right? But that awkward silence prompts the person to write it down. And if I wrote it down, I'm coming.
Right.
And there's a lot of psychology to it, but those are just some of the highlights.
Yeah, it's adding to that commitment level 100%. Another thing that is very common with some of my clients is you're working with a market where you're working with people who perhaps are affordability of your service is stretching them beyond what they would typically, say yes to. And salespeople can be very quick to back off of I can't afford it, and just be like, okay, this person can't afford our services, we write them off. The reality is that if the ROI is there for the client, right? Like if the value add is there, everyone can afford it, right? If you can 10x the return on their spend, the value is there. We just need to help them see how they can pay for it, right? So let's just use criminal defense as an example, right? You're going to charge $3,500 to represent somebody who is charged with a DUI, right? One of the things I would do in that conversation is I would paint the picture of everything that's going to cost them if they're found guilty, right? Your insurance is going to go up by X amount of dollars. You're going to have a hard time getting jobs. You're never going to be able to be a delivery driver for anything. You're going to, you just start putting in all these different things that are going to be a result. If you get arrested for another DWI, you might end up with jail time or whatever. And all of a sudden you paint this picture where you're like, the cost of you being found guilty is not just a slap on the wrist. It's going to end up costing you $20,000, $30,000. And now when you pitch $3,500 for the service, in contrast to the risk that they have, it becomes more of a no-brainer. Now, what if they really can't? They don't have $3,500. So that's where, and I hate payment plans with firms, right? That's where you lean on somebody like LawPay or something like that, where they're partnered with one of these buy now, pay later options. Yeah, it costs you 6% upfront, 7% upfront, whatever it is. But you're not getting into the banking business, but you're also giving your clients an opportunity to say yes and pay it over time. And this is very important. Getting away from taking payments is important because so many things can happen, right? The case could settle quicker, and at the moment it's over, they don't want to pay anymore, right? But if they have a relationship with somebody who they borrowed money from and it's not you, they can't just say, oh, the case is over, I'm not making the rest of my payments, right? They're going to have to deal with that on their credit or whatever it is. So that's why I think it's so important to separate the two, but come up with ways that they can afford it, even if it's a stretch for them, so that you can take that option off the table. So it's positioning, and it's also giving them a solution to overcome that challenge. And if you can't, have a payment option, have links to, 4 credit cards that they can apply for, even if they have low credit, where they might get a credit line big enough to be able to pay for your service, right? Like have a solution there. So you could say, oh, you don't have any family who can help you out. Okay, so here, we've got this portal. If you go here, you put your information in, let's see if you're eligible for that. Oh, it denied you? Okay, I have these 3 links that you can go to. Let's do one of these applications and see see if you can get approved. Like, think outside the box, go beyond the sale to get the sale.
So I love this. So I will, yes, ditto to everything that you said. And then I would add a step before that. But first, let me explain. There's a reason why my methodology is called Connect Convert and not Convince Convert. Connection is the key. So when with my energy, and I don't mean to sound hokey, but you know what I mean by energy, right? Like my disposition, 100%. My tone, like I'm transmitting my beliefs, whether I know it or not. So before we get into the discussion of here's the roadmap to solve your money problem, we need to understand, where does the pricing objection really come from? I agree with you. When people see value, they will find a way to pay. And when you give people solutions to pay, like that's super helpful. And sometimes that solves a problem. But I would caution, and I know this because I've audited so many phone calls. We first have to make sure that our sales and intake team that's having these conversations believes, they have to legitimately believe that this is worth the money. I will give you a simple example. We work with other industries as well. Okay, so we were doing our Connect Convert program with a dentist, and the woman on the phone was asked to quote a price, and she said, well, that deep cleaning is $1,500. Her tone was like already telling the person, like, that's a lot of money for you, sir. No, do you believe, number one, that it is worth the money for you? Ask your sales and intake team, hey, Karen, Ted, Maria, whoever, let's just have a conversation. We're in a criminal law firm. Would you pay $25,000 for our services? If not, let's unpack that. We've got to make sure that our sales and intake team that is representing our firm on the phone believes our service is worth the money, because they don't believe it. I don't care what solution they give. It's not going to fly. Like, it's not going to stick with most people. That energy comes out in the subtle tone that is used and things like that. The other piece is when people talk about price, you don't always have to respond with a solution to price. So another step that I would take before doing what you described is, number one, the mindset. Number two, let's have a real conversation about what the real issue is, right? Let's ask questions. That's too much money. Walk me through why you think that, why you feel that way. Let the person tell you what's really going on in their mind. It may not be that they don't have where to get the money. It may be that they have issues with self-worth. This happens a lot in the criminal space. I committed the crime. I deserve the punishment. Let's unpack that, right? Well, I hear you, and maybe you feel bad for spending all this money on yourself, and then you walk them through the pros and cons, the risk from that angle versus just the superficial money part. Because oftentimes I find, and this is me probably being a little biased based on my personal background, if somebody really sees value in something, they'll find a way to pay. And what I mean is, I grew up very humbly. My parents are immigrants, very low income. It boggled my mind how even people on food stamps came up with $15,000, $25,000 to pay for a quinceañera. I'm like, I'm over here trying to go to college. You know what I mean? Like, can somebody give me money for books? And people come up with the money. When it's something that really matters to them, they will come up with the money. Yes, there are extreme circumstances, but if it's a legal issue, especially, people will come up with the money. It's a matter of perceived value. And then the last step for me would be, okay, let's talk about now the resources, right? GoFundMe, ask your cousins, ask your friends, your long lost aunt, make up with your ex, whatever it takes to get the money. For me, it's yes, let's do that. But before we do that, we've got to do these other steps. The mindset, the really understanding what is the belief beneath the person's actual objection, because it's hardly ever money. We teach how to overcome objections, and money is a big one. And that's usually where we take the conversation in our trainings. We talk about just the mindset of the perceived value is really where it's at for us.
Yeah. And in almost every business where you have a financial objection, the answer is that's exactly why you need this, right? Almost always, if money is the objection,
yes,
exactly why you need this, right?
Yeah.
And in our example of criminal defense or whatever, right? So you already painted the ROI, right? If you can't, if you feel like you can't afford $3,500, imagine what it's going to cost you over time if you don't solve this now, right? That's exactly why you need to come up with this now, because this is the lowest cost of the solution for this problem, right?
Yeah.
And we have this with our clients, right? Our clients who are looking to join our elite program, our clients who are looking to take us on a fractional CFO, right? If they come back and say, that's a lot of money, I don't think I can afford that, it's the same answer. That's exactly why you need us, right? We're the ones that are going to help you to be able to afford something like this. If you continue to operate the way that you're operating, it's not going to get solved. So I love that part. And I also love the approaching your conversation, your sales conversation, from a place of intrigue, questioning. Always ask them to tell you more about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I think it's so powerful when you are able to, it's not just the connection, it's people love to talk about themselves. They love to be able to share their problems. And the more that you dig in and let them just talk and explain, you get more knowledge to be able to arm you with getting to the close. But at the same time, they're building that connection with you because they're sharing with you. You just became their therapist, right? Yep. And now they're getting a free session. Awesome. So when they're done, they feel like they owe you something. They feel like they want to give you the business. Even if they don't want to give the firm the business, they want to give you the business. And that alone can drive somebody to the close. So I love all of that. I think it's awesome. I think the thing that most people are not doing is just auditing their sales calls. Like, even if you go back and listen to your own call, like, you're the salesperson, go back and listen to your own call a week later. You will find, oh, I could have said this. I could have done that. I could have done this differently. If you do that enough times, you're going to get better at doing it, even without bringing somebody like Margarita into your world. Bring in an expert, and now you're unstoppable.
And full disclosure, it took me over 10 years to come up with this methodology, because for a long time I did what a lot of law firm owners did, where I would listen to the calls, in the marketing side, and I would share feedback. Oh, if you were nicer, or your tone, or whatever. But it was almost like there was no consistency to that feedback. So the methodology really helps us have a consistency, a strategy behind the feedback, so we can focus on specific areas more strategically, versus if you were just nicer,
Right.
it's a lot more specific. And I find that it's a lot more helpful, because a lot of law firm owners, when they listen to a phone call, it might sound okay, but then when you listen to it against our methodology, then is where you start to, oh, you know what? She was nice, but she didn't use the person's name, or he was nice, but he didn't reassure the caller. He didn't, prompt the person to take a symbolic action. And then you start to identify all those gaps. That, again, that's why this is such a blind spot. A lot of law firm owners do have nice, professional sounding people, but because they're skipping a lot of those KPIs, they're not signing up as many cases as they could.
Yeah. It's not just auditing the sales calls. It's not just having the system and this process, but you can even implement that, like your auditing system, into the sales team themselves. Like, they could just put on the wall, here's the 5 things I'm being judged on. Let me just, as I'm in each part of this call, let me just focus on this area to do my best job at this juncture. It almost gives them, I don't think scripted calls works. Like, people need to be natural and just show up as themselves. But I think having guideposts, right? Like, okay, we're at this mile marker in this call. Now I'm going to focus on this area, right? Now I'm going to connect. Now I'm going to, try to unpack the emotion side of it. Now I'm going to go to the convert. Like, I think that just having that structure, it gives you structure for how you grade it and how you provide the feedback. But I think it can also be the thing that gives them structure on the call.
100%. When folks go through our program, we put them through an on-demand training that's via video. So they're listening to the videos and learning about the methodology while our team scores the calls. And then when we actually present the results, to management and all that, we come up with a customized SOP like I described, right? Where that addresses where they have the greatest areas of opportunity as a team. We deliver a live workshop. During that live workshop, we make it fun. We always say, hey, we audited your calls, but it's not like being audited by the IRS. Like, this is actually here to give you information and empower you. And guess what? We're going to teach you how to audit your own calls. We teach them how to audit their own calls in the same exact way. We have discussions about it. We have exercises around it, because that is the idea. They can get audited by our team all day long, but if they're not self-auditing continually and paying attention to those KPIs themselves, then it's not going to be as effective. So we do definitely encourage folks that are doing sales and intake at law firms to audit themselves continually around the KPIs, and we teach them how to do it, because it's not hard. Like, it's, you can take notes on a scratch piece of paper and just listen to yourself later on and audit if that's what works for you. But it's super easy and it's very effective.
Awesome, Margarita. This is all very powerful and really good for our audience to hear. We don't talk a lot about sales conversion, but it's such a big piece of the business. It's so important. A lot of our listeners might be, solos or smalls, and perhaps the owner is doing a lot of the selling, right? And owners, we just assume that we're amazing salespeople, right? Like,
Right.
we're like, I'm the owner. Why would somebody not want to buy
Or
from me?
we're the best
Right.
law firm. Why wouldn't they want to hire us? Right.
Exactly. And that, like, getting really good at sales for you personally, but also what I really love about this is creating that structure around your sales conversation, because when you do want to get out of the sales business yourself, when you want to hire staff to be your salespeople, if without this, you bring somebody on, you don't even know how to train them because you don't know what you do. You just show
Yes.
up and you have a conversation,
Yes, it's
right?
so true.
And you
Yes.
can't tell somebody to come in and just have a conversation, right? Like you've
Yeah.
never thought about like what are the reasons that you would want to work with our firm? Why are we different than other firms around? What, what are the selling points? What's our unique
Yep.
selling proposition? You never think about these things. So going through something like this and really getting that SOP in place for the sales process is key and instrumental to being able to grow beyond yourself. So as you're scaling your business and you're looking, oh, hey, I want to bring in another attorney salesperson. I want to bring in non-attorney salespeople. If you don't have a structure around that, it's almost impossible to bring somebody in and have success with it.
I love working with solopreneurs that have literally done nothing but put up a website and get a bunch of referrals. They're my favorite, especially with the sales piece, because they're like, oh yeah, like everybody that calls hires me. And I'm like, yeah, because your pal over at the PI firm like sends them all here. Like that's not fair.
Right.
Like,
That's cheating.
you're about to run ads where you're going to get the tire kickers. You're going to get people not paying attention. They've already called 5 other law firms and you're the last one and maybe they'll go with you. Like that's a whole other animal. And they usually, you're right. They don't know how magical it is what they do. They think, oh, I'm just going to hire someone, explain to them what we do, and then they're going to sell. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like you have to have a process. And then the automation piece is important too. Again, that's marketing and sales really, right? Follow up with a text, follow up with an email, follow up with a drip sequence, and personalize it by case type would be ideal, right? Or by whatever other qualifier you're looking for. And that can also help with some of that ROI. And a lot of solopreneurs aren't even thinking about that. They're just like, oh, I just need more leads. And It's like, you're going to end up with the flood and like, no way. And I've seen it before. I had a PI guy, hire us and the phone rang and it flooded with leads, zero ROI because nobody was ready to convert those leads. Nobody was trained. Everybody was rude, not because they were rude people, but you know what I mean? Like people were calling with like pain, confusion, questions.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to handle it. They'd put them on hold for 15 minutes. And I'm like, that was $600 for that lead. Like, call back.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's the most, I mean, for a marketing person, like that's the thing that really gets you. You're like, oh, do you know how much we spent to get that phone to ring? And you're
Yes.
answering it with your feet on the desk and thinking about what you're going to do during lunchtime. Like, come on, get in the game.
It makes me cry.
So,
It really does. Like, as a marketer, I'm not the agency doing the work, but we really work hand in hand with the agencies and the vendors and the marketing team. And like, we bleed with them too. So yeah, that's painful.
all right, it's a great place for us to end this conversation.
Yeah.
I think that there's opportunity for us to have you back. There's so much more that we didn't discuss that we can cover. But I really love the direction our conversation took, and we really covered a ton of ground around the sales process and really some of the key things that you want to think about. Audit your calls, look for these mile markers in the conversation, make sure that your people are connecting with the client, asking questions, getting curious with objections to really uncover the true objection that's beneath the surface, because usually when they tell you one, it's not really the reason. And if it makes sense, give Margarita a call, right? So that leads me to the final 2 things of this podcast recording. I always ask our guests the same thing at the end. Number one parting piece of advice or wisdom you want to leave with our audience. Number 2, where can they look you up, connect with you, take the next step with you, get more information about working with you?
Absolutely. So parting piece of advice is I cannot stress the value of mindset enough. Your mindset as a business owner, your team's mindset, and those beliefs, it all comes out, whether it's in your marketing or your sales. And as far as getting in touch, I have my CMO brand, so Marketing Boss, CMO brand, all the social channels. We have a website. And then I have my personal brand as well. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me at margaritaeberline.com. And, those are 2 ways. I love social media. That's the easiest way to connect with me is, follow me on Facebook and let's chat, or LinkedIn or Instagram. So, and I have a silly fun side. So hopefully you'll enjoy the content. And I'm always making content that's, funny and relatable about marketing, about law firm ownership, and about sales as well. Because we're in a very stressful industry. So let's just, keep it fun.
Absolutely. All right, awesome, Margarita. Thank you for being here. Folks, we are here every single Thursday with a brand new episode with another amazing guest. So if you're not subscribed to whatever channel you're hearing or listening to this or watching it on. We're on YouTube. We're in every podcast player. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get notified the next time that we drop an amazing conversation. You can check out the show notes in your podcast player, in your YouTube channel, but as well on our website, profitwithlaw.com. All the resources that were mentioned are going to be linked up there, so you don't have to write anything down or remember anything. Just go to our website, and for the page with this episode, we'll have all the resources there for you. And if you are thinking, I'm not sure if I need to fix my sales, I'm not sure if I need to work on my marketing, I don't even know what I need to do, then you want a free strategy session that my team can have with you. It's 30 minutes where we can help you to, number one, identify where are you trying to go. Number two, how would you get there? Number three, what's standing in your way? What do you need to overcome to get there? So a real clarifying conversation to help you just create that journey for that next step for you. If you want to have that, go to profitwithlaw.com/strategy session, profitwithlaw.com/strategy session, and we'll be happy to help you really get alignment and clarity around what you're trying to achieve so that you can start to move in a positive direction in your law firm growth and profitability. That's all, folks. We'll see you next Thursday. Take care.
Thank you.